This episode is brought to you by BigMooseCoffeeCompany.co. Pals, greetings and welcome to yet another episode of Everything Endurance. I hope you're all doing well out there. It's been an action-packed few weeks, FKTs and records going on right, left and centre, so I imagine you're all having a great time. We've suddenly got plenty of stuff to keep us occupied again, which is absolutely wonderful. It's the list of people that I need to congratulate on their incredible achievements over the last few weeks is just getting longer and longer, and I know I'm going to miss some people, but Beth Pascal, incredible, Carla Molinaro, fantastic. That's another jog record gone. We've already spoken to Mimi Anderson, who held that record previously, and Sharon Gator, who then broke it. And Carla Molinaro is, fingers crossed, going to be on the show soon as well to talk about her record-breaking run. And our guest today is another person who's just grabbed themselves a massive FKT. I'm among the people whose philosophy has always been that, you know, if you've got bad news, you should lead in with it. So I'm going to start with the bad news. I do want you guys to brace yourselves a little. This is going to be difficult, but we're going to get through it together. I'm going to be off next week. That's where we are. I'm taking a week off. That means the podcast is taking a week off. And I'm desperately sorry, but there is going to be a little bit of a break to our usual programming. But we promise this time only a week. And when we come back, we're going to be coming back with some great episodes. So Carla, I've already said, we've got Steve Hill as well, who you guys are going to absolutely love. He's just the most inspirational guy. And you know what? I'm not going to list them all now. You're going to see them coming thick and fast very, very soon. But don't worry, we'll be back in a week, and we'll be back with a vengeance. Back to today's guest. It's a slightly shorter episode. On account of having to fit him in between appearances on the Beeb and being interviewed by The Guardian, which is absolutely fantastic stuff for this runner and for ultra running in general. I'm going to be talking to someone who has just broken a record for the fastest time running the length of the Pennine Way. Now, if that sounds familiar, you haven't accidentally replayed the John Kelly episode from about a week ago. You have, in fact, clicked on the correct episode. Today, we're going to be talking to the person who, you know, John Kelly got that record after it stood for 31 years. And the person we're going to be speaking to today let him hold it for little more than a week before coming in and taking it himself. This is a runner who is an absolute delight to talk to. An extremely popular and extremely talented runner, who also brings something new to his runs, as he is working ever more in the direction of making all of his runs and all of his challenges carbon neutral, and helping people see that can be done, and that it can be done quite easily. And we're going to strike on that a little bit during this episode. My God, if you hadn't already got it from the title, we are obviously today going to be talking to the rather delightful Damian Hall. Damian, how are you doing?
I'm quite good, thank you, Will. I say quite good because I won't fib. I'm having ups and downs, and I just had a lot of cheesecake, and I think it's starting to wear off. So if I sort of start sliding down the screen and just collapse, that could be the reason, although there could be other reasons too.
Okay, if I see you starting to sag, I will shout. Okay, I won't just leave you to it. Massive congratulations. What an absolutely epic achievement.
Thank you. It was good fun. It was exciting, and yeah, everything I wished for and more. And it's hard because when you're after something like this, still right now, I'm still kind of emotionally quite raw, and you go to those kind of extremes, and you get a bit over dramatic with things. But it really was one of those kind of, you know, life is for making memories and stuff, and that really was one of the most memorable few days I'll probably have. So, you know, a huge thanks to everyone who helped me, because there are a lot of fantastic runners and fantastic crew people and members of the public just turned out in their I don't know. I don't know how many a drove is. I was going to say in their droves, but I'm not sure how many a drove is.
Scientifically speaking, I'm not certain, but well, I'll look into it before I write the description for the episode.
Thank you. But a lot of people contributed in small and big ways, and thank you everyone so much for sharing the experience with me. Yeah, it's been wonderful.
And you're right. The experience from my side of it, which is obviously sitting on my arse on the sofa watching your dot move along the Pennine Way rather than doing anything actually active, is there were so many people talking about your progress, and John's in the week before. There were so many people supporting back from home, so many messages getting shared around. 4 or 5 different people must have shared the link to your tracking with me, like I wouldn't have been watching already. It's after months of lockdown and tedium and anxiety and stress, watching all of you runners unleashed and going out there and loping through the hills over the last couple of weeks has just been fantastic. So you know what, Damian? Thank you for going out there and doing it. But it does. It takes a huge team, and the challenges that you and runners like John and Cara Molinaro's just got the joggle or the jog, I'm never which way round it is. It seems to have lit a fire under an awful lot of people and shown how tight this sort of ultra running community can be.
Yeah, I think it is an unprecedented is getting a bit of a boring word, isn't it? But it's an unprecedented year, and then it's in the sport. It definitely is. I don't think we'll see a summer like it again, to be honest, because I think most people are expecting races to be on in some form in the fairly near future, and certainly next summer. So I think this is going to be a one-off summer. We'll probably call it the record-breaking coronavirus summer or something. I'm not sure.
Hopefully something snappier, but we'll have a think about it.
You're better with words than me. I'll leave that to you. The summer of getting FKT'd or something, or something more family-friendly. Yeah, it's unprecedented. And for example, I'm good friends with Beth Pascal, and she was going to help me, and then obviously our dates clashed, and she was breaking the Bob Graham round at the same time as I was jogging into Edale. I say jogging, more hobbling, but and say Kim Collison helped her, helped me, and he broke the 24-hour Lakeland 24-hour record the week before and stuff. So it was wonderfully incestuous, and just lovely. Yeah, it's been a lovely few weeks, and I think it'll probably carry on for a few weeks. I won't break any more records in the next few weeks, other than the slowness for getting down the stairs or something like that. But yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? It's great.
I think you can be forgiven for that, Damian. You've done quite a lot to your legs in the last week or so. God, we really are talking to you quite soon after it finished. So I mean, I led in with a sort of polite how are you? But really, how are you? How are you feeling physically now in this sort of early stage of putting your body back together again?
I'm a fair bit better today, but the first. Yeah, if you want the sordid details, and I sense you might.
I'm always after the sordid details, David.
So first, slept up in the Lake, Derbyshire in a hotel. Woke up, bang awake at 4 a.m. Luckily, I had a cold pizza sitting next to me, so ate all of that. Poured a bath, fell asleep in that, as I had the night before. So yeah, quite dangerous. Don't do that at home, kids. Had breakfast. A friend drove me home, thankfully. Felt okay-ish. But then, yes, I've had night sweats every night since, which is just disgusting. One leg looked like it had been stolen from the Elephant Man and fattened up a bit. My toe, I've got a big toe that is really quite keen to leave after what I've done to it. And, I'm sponsored by Innovate. It's nothing to do with the shoe. I think I've still got nerve damage from that big toe from my first spine race, actually. So I tend to kick things with it a bit and not realize I've kicked things. So it's kind of, it's already, it gets messed up without me realizing. So it's quite grumpy.
The Pennine Way's made a mark on you in a lot of ways then, hasn't it?
Yes. Yes, it really has. There's a mysterious bruise on my backside. What else? A few scratches and scrapes. But, it's all good fun, really. I'm mostly mending. I was was definitely very tired. I feel a bit more lively today. But yeah, that first time, my cat ran away from me. Like I was hobbling towards it to feed it, and it was like, oh my God, an alien, and it dashed off. And that was a bit upsetting. My kids didn't bat an eyelid and jumped on my feet and so on, which was, that was fun.
Kids don't make great physios.
You're right there. But otherwise, but you've got this kind of, the thing was a success. So you've got this overarching kind of euphoria or happiness, which takes away from any of that. So I'm certainly not whinging. I certainly wouldn't swap any of that or change any of that. Very happy, really. I hope that didn't sound like complaints. I was just listing.
I asked for the gory details, Damian. I led you down that road. So no, I'm not, that's absolutely fine. And, I think it was very kind of you to give John Kelly a week at least. Not even a week, to give him a little while with the record before you came in and broke it. Obviously, I had him on the show last week, and you two had been in touch with each other a lot. Wasn't there talk at one point of maybe one starting north, one starting south, and a high five on the way through?
Yes, that was briefly discussed, and I know that would have been very exciting for dot watchers. But we couldn't quite get it to work, especially with the lockdown. It made the dates really. We weren't sure when we could go, and actually, like, it was okay to go in England, but then of course it wasn't okay to go in Scotland.
Yeah.
And the Pennine Way is like 6 kilometers in Scotland, and you're kind of like, well, is that really visiting Scotland? But yeah, you want to play it by the book, and you don't want to upset anyone up there who feels a bit worried about people coming to visit. So we put it off really, and then ultimately, I mean, to me, it was really key to have the right team with me and stuff, and they could only do certain dates, and I would have rather, had the right crew and go exactly where I wanted to go. That was more important to me than high-fiving John, although it is good to high-five John when we're allowed to high-five again, of course.
That would have been a socially distanced high-five.
Yeah, or an elbow bump, yeah. But yeah, so we couldn't quite get that to work. But in the end, I mean, I know it looks a bit mean what I've done to John. If I'm honest, I didn't really think. Well, I mostly didn't really think I'd beat him because he's John Kelly, and then also there's Mike Hartley, who's incredible, who's a name that's been in my head for years. I just didn't. It's not that I didn't think I could, but I only sort of 30% thought maybe it's possible, and 70% is like, no way, those guys are too good. But then also, John got the excitement of breaking a 31-year-old record. I broke a record that had stood for a week. It doesn't sound quite so good, does it?
I see what you're saying. You took a fairly good bite out of it, though. You really did. Mike Hartley and John Kelly's records. Was it just one of those occasions where everything fell together, where things went the way you thought they would? It looked it from the outside, I'd have to say. So whoever was sort of handling the social media around this, it looked like you were just gambling along, having a whale of a time for most of it.
It wasn't probably as easy as that sounds.
I imagine not.
But in a way, yeah, I was hoping to be more kind of measured and not as aggressive as those two had been early on in their runs. And that isn't typically the way I run anyway. But when I looked at the Strava upload yesterday, I did have a King of the Mountain on the very first climb of the Cheviots.
Wow.
So I obviously did go out quite a frisky manner.
If not aggressively, at least enthusiastically.
Yeah. And in fact, one of my pacers in the Cheviots has since showed me a screenshot of the email I sent him that said, I absolutely will not get ahead of schedule in the Cheviots. Don't worry, I'm not going to be going fast. And he sent that to me today saying, you massive liar. But yeah, the Cheviot section was just wonderful and joyous, and it was just so exciting to start. I don't think I overcooked it, but, I was going very nicely. And I don't know when exactly, but, after a few hours, we were sort of, maybe an hour up on the schedule, which was kind of wonderful news. But there was no rush. I was always trying to think, don't get carried away. You're just building a safe buffer for when you need some sleep, or if you, go off route or trip up or something. And then, 1 hour turned into 2 at some point. And then it became 3. I don't know when, but and it was progressing past 3 on sort of the afternoon of the second day. I think even I was thinking, could I even get to 4 ahead here? But by that stage, I'd had very, very little sleep and was feeling quite goosed. So I took some advice from someone who suggested I have a proper sleep in this context being 45 minutes. So I got my head down 45 minutes. That probably meant 35 minutes of sleep. That was my second sleep. I'd had 5 to 10 minutes earlier that day. So I did feel a bit subpar around then. And I had that sleep and that revived me for a bit. But that second night, as I was expecting, really did drag. And it was actually quite flat terrain, but I wasn't moving well. And actually, I'd lost some time. I got below 3 hours off the record. But then kind of dawn comes along and maybe you get some fresh paces and you feel revived and off you go again. And I think the next section, this is from, I can't remember, somewhere in the Dales. We put another hour into it. So we were comfortably at 3 hours up. And it was like, yeah, here we go. We're okay. But then around the lunchtime, kind of early afternoon, if I'm honest, I probably started to count my chickens a little bit because I don't know, so many people were turning out and saying, well done and congratulations. And, it was becoming, friends were turning up to run with me who I didn't know were coming. And, it was a bit of a celebration. Yeah. And then I got a bit carried away with that, I think, and just relaxed a bit. It got a bit hot, wasn't probably eating. There was a bonk or two. And then suddenly we got to sort of Torside, which is before the last big climb and the last chunk, the last kind of 2 to 3 hours up over Bleaklow and Kinder Scout. And I'd lost half an hour over the previous section. And it was like, oh shit, I've really taken my eye off the ball here. Luckily, Nikki Spinks was joining me for a second time there. But I made the mistake of sort of saying to her, look, Nikki, if we work hard here, I can still knock 3 hours off the record. And for a lot of that next 3 hours, I regretted saying that to her because she took that very literally and really kicked my butt. First on the long climb up and then through all the sort of peat troughs and then on the flagstones after Snake Pass, just absolutely, well, I felt like we were doing a tempo run along there. I've since looked and I don't think it was even 8-minute miles, but it felt like 6-minute miles. And
you asked for pacing.
Yeah. I was just breathing out of every hole and I was just going, I had a brilliant pacer just behind me as well, Jamie Rutherford, a young guy who was incredible, actually. All my pacers were, but he was just the right man at the right time, as well as Nikki. And he was sort of in my ear saying, being encouraging, but also making sure I drank and ate. And I was just having sweets and Coke, basically, for 3 hours. It was sweets and Coke. I hope my kids aren't watching this. And it was, my mouth was just disgusting, but that's what it was needed. And then finally tumbled down Jacob's Ladder into Ida, which was all quite moving, actually. There were a few more people. Actually, there were 1 or 2 people up on the Kinder Plateau, and they kind of tagged along. And I just assumed they were runners out for the day. And one of them tried to chat to me. Now, I wasn't rude, but I think I made it clear I wasn't really in a talking mood. And they sort of tagged along a bit. And there was part of my head in a very tired way, sort of thinking, who are these people tagging on? Turns out they were all fell running legends, such as Mark Hartell and Mark McDonald and people like that, who have got numerous fell running records and had, done me the massive honor of sort of coming out to give me a sort of entourage on the way in. And
you snubbed your honor card.
Who are these annoying people? So huge apologies to them. I don't think I was mega rude, but I wasn't very chatty. But Nikki said, you don't want to look back and not have given everything, because other people will go for the record. John might go again, and I don't want it to be too easy for people. So
I think you've set a pretty high bar. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Well, hopefully, we'll see. I suppose. And then arriving in Edale was really moving. There were, there was well, for me, a huge crowd. They looked socially distanced, I might add, but
I've seen the videos. I'd agree.
okay. But that was really moving because I thought maybe there'll be 5 or 6 people in Edel and my crew, maybe a couple of people have fallen out the pub and wondered what the fuss is, but there was a proper crowd. And, John had travelled up, John Kelly, Mike Hartley had travelled there, Martin Stone. And a friend of, the son of my mate from my village had travelled over from Liverpool, Otto Copping. Hello, Otto. Really, really emotional, actually. And of course, I was just too much of a wreck to be any use socially to anyone, really. But thank you, everyone. That was wonderful.
Well, you'd earned it, pal. Your legs had, at least. Let's put you back in Kirk Yetholm then. Firstly, any particular reason you chose to go north to south? I asked John about it, and for John, it was very much about the logistics of getting to one end or the other in lockdown. What made you decide to start in Scotland?
My first instinct was that I've gone south to north 3 times on the Pennine Way, and I didn't want to get too bored of it. And I've always wondered what's it like going the other way.
That
so purely sense. For sort of almost mental freshness. But then secondly, Mike Hartley went that way, and I thought, well, he probably looked into it. So I did phone up Mike and had a good chat on the phone. And his 2 reasons were that, he'd be running home, which can be quite motivational. And it's sort of the case for me. At least I live in the south, but not near the peaks. But also you get the Cheviot section, which you'll know all about. It's basically the longest section where you can't get road support. It could be anywhere really from sort of 5 hours to kind of 8 hours if you're struggling a bit. So to not have road support for that long at the end, as people find out in the Spine race, is really quite challenging. And you're up there on these exposed plateaus, if the weather kicks in. So it's quite nice to get that done out the way. And then when you're going south, it's the opposite. It's getting more and more populous, more and more road crossings, more road support, maybe more sort of encouragement from locals and stuff. Also, Crossfell comes within the first 100 miles if you go south, and that's the highest climb and one of the most notorious bits. So to my mind, if you go that way, you get a lot of the tougher terrain done earlier on. So that seemed to make sense. But the downside is, I didn't know it so well that way, but also if the weather picks up, most of our weather comes from the southwest, so it would be coming in your face if you're going south. So that's a risk. But it worked out in this instance.
Yeah, absolutely. Fair enough. And I'm just wondering, how far back did you've had a relationship with the Pennine Way going back a long way. I mean, as I pointed out in the John Kelly episode, you literally wrote the book on the Pennine Way. So when was that now? When did you write your sort of hiking guide to the trail?
So, I first walked it. I got an invitation to do a guidebook for it in 2011, and I hiked it that year. And I think the book came out the next year, but that was my first real experience of it, and I just I loved it straight away.
So you must have been aware at that point of the Hartley record.
Yes, very much. So I remember. So I was doing a new official guide, but I had kind of the old official guide, which was they get updated, and that was deemed to need an update, and the guy didn't want to do another one, so they decided to do a fresh one. And in that guide, it talked about Mike's run, and I think at the time I'd done a half marathon or something. But I really wasn't a runner. I'd just only done one race, I think. And I remember reading about that, and it was one of the first things about fell running that I'd heard of. And I remember just thinking, that is insane. That's just ludicrous, not something I could ever do. But of course, it sows a seed. And it's been in my head ever since that. He apparently only had sort of two 20-minute stops. Actually, I mean, he stopped a lot of times, but just very briefly. But he stopped for. I remember writing that he stopped for fish and chips in Alston. That was one of his main stops. He didn't sleep at all.
Wow.
Yeah, so that definitely put the idea in my head. But it was still many more years until I actually thought maybe I could run it.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't assuming there that this was going to be a 9-year story where you'd had this idea in your mind. I mean, that would be incredible if you decided that in 2011 and constructed this career alongside it. But when did you decide? Yeah, this isn't just an idea in the back of my head. I'm going to go for this FKT.
Yeah, so in 2016, I ran the Southwest Coast Path, which was my first FKT. And after that, I remember the sort of journey home with my two friends who had helped me there. We were sort of saying what next, and definitely the Pennine Way was one of the ones discussed. But I was always very intimidated because it was just such a good record, set by an elite fell runner, not just, not just, I don't know, not just some sort of stubborn hobbyist, or I'm trying to think of a good phrase that's not patronizing or dismissive. But some FKTs, really impressive. But Mike was so in the European 100K Championships in 1993, he came fourth. So,
wow.
He's a proper athletic talent, So I didn't, so that was intimidating. So I would kind of put it off every year and think of a good reason not to do it. And of course, it's not the sort of thing you can just fit in between a couple of races or something. It's, it needs a proper effort beforehand and proper recovery after. So of course, every year I put it off. And then this year with lockdown, I had no excuses left. So in March was when I realistically thought, actually, basically if UTMB gets cancelled, then I'll do it. I think UTMB wasn't cancelled till May, but it was quite obvious, I think, that it was going to be in April.
They held off on the announcement, but you could kind of see that it wasn't looking good. Yeah.
And also, I was also thinking, actually, if it goes ahead, I actually don't want to do it anyway. So I didn't really want to travel abroad, and so I was thinking, so definitely March, April, I started to think, right, this year, then I guess I better bite the bullet and get on with it.
What does a training week look like for you when you're at the peak of your training for something like this? What does a week look like for you? And I've seen you fitting in runs at outrageous times. I know the first year when I worked with you on the spine, I'd get up in the morning at what I thought was a disgustingly early hour, only to be told that you'd already been out and run like a half marathon. I was fuming.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
This year I've trained a little bit differently, actually. I've had some input from David Roach, the American coach. So the previous 2 years I was self-coached, and one of them was my best year. And then the next year wasn't so successful, but there are several reasons why that might be. And then I just thought, I could benefit from a bit of extra input, a bit of objective sort of feedback. So I've been working with David Roach, and actually do kind of less volume now, but probably more quality. So I don't often do much more than 70 miles in a week. That's quite a nice, he often has me between the 60 and 70 miles, but there's nearly always one really good quality speed session and lots of strides and hill strides. But leading up to this, we did have a really good quality 4 weeks where I did do 100 miles in one of them. And then sort of in the 1890s with runs on the Pennine Way, back-to-back long runs, a real, 4 really big weeks, which seem to do the trick, I suppose.
Is there anything that you do on the run-in? And I ask this because basically I interviewed a guy on the podcast a couple of months ago who's a sleep expert, and it was great to talk to him and just hear how fascinated he was by these incredible feats of sleep deprivation that a lot of ultra runners go through. Is there anything you do on the run into an event like this to prepare yourself for those extended periods of no sleep? Yes, I
always tell myself to try and get extra sleep in advance. But whether it really happens, because if you really care, what I found leading up to UTMB a couple of years ago and leading up to this, if I'm honest, is basically I was waking at 5:30 every morning and couldn't go back to sleep because it was on my mind. But what I do find helps is I've got a lot better at kind of semi-clearing the diary, beforehand, so that I get quality time with family and quality time just being relaxed. And that actually makes a big difference to me. You know, previously when I'd go into a race, you know, stressed about work, or often you're having to do extra bits of work because you're going away and so on. And that really doesn't help for me. Some people can do fine on that. In fact, I mean, I don't know, I doubt she'll mind me telling you too much, but I did just chat to Beth about her Bob Graham, and the week leading up to it was, you know, super stressful with work and weather forecasts and try and get a team together and all of this. It was the opposite of my build up, and yet look at her go. So you know, people shouldn't be too stressed out necessarily if they've been stressed out, if you know what I mean. But for me, I've got increasingly, you know, the calmer and happier I feel going into something, the better I think I'll do. So yeah, sleep is definitely very important, but if you can't quite get the sleep you want, then at least look for some sort of calm and relaxation, I think.
And that's an easy thing not to really think about with one of these challenges, from the outside of it at least, is, you know, we see the work that you're having to do with your legs throughout the event, but nobody that I've interviewed about their FKTs is at the sport where, say, a professional athlete who's considered at the elite level as a footballer, or say an athletic sprinter, would have a manager setting all this kind of stuff up around them and a team of acolytes making everything work. But you guys are lining up all these ducks yourself before you go off and do these challenges, and it's a tremendous amount of work and stress that goes on in the run into them as well. It's certainly how it looks from the outside.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I've got a coach. I mean, I have got a coach, but yeah, he doesn't know where I'm. He's in a different country. He doesn't know what. And I coach a lot of athletes as well. You know, I can't really know what they're up to in the average day. So yeah, the responsibility comes down to the individual person, I think. But I did work with a sports psychologist as well for the first time. I was just curious about what I could improve on there, what I could benefit from. So it was good to get a few strategies from her, Dr. Josie Perry.
That's fascinating. Really do you feel like that made a big contribution? I
do, actually. I think I went into it a lot calmer, a lot more reassured about my own approach. I think, if I'm honest, yeah, I was intimidated by Mike Hartley and by John Kelly, in that they're just so incredible athletes, and I don't consider myself to be of their level. But I suppose maybe
mathematically, you'd have to say you definitely are, Damian. You can't deny it anymore.
But yeah, I do have a bit of a, I don't know if it's an inferiority complex or an imposter syndrome type thing, where I don't. Obviously, if I obviously don't have it too badly, or I wouldn't try in the first place. And I've tried and it's come off. But I just wanted some reassurance that my approach was okay, I suppose. So like my schedule, for example, was very different to John's. John had an aggressive, ambitious schedule where he was trying to get hours ahead early on. And mine was kind of almost a minimal schedule of like, this is the least you have to do to break the record. Anything else is a bonus. But actually, for my mindset, that's absolutely perfect, because it's relaxing. And then I go out and enjoy it. And if I chip off a bit here and there, then great. And yeah, John has a different approach, and people really admire his focus and so on. And I think there isn't necessarily a wrong approach. You've got to work out what suits your personality, I suppose. So I'm perfectly happy with how I approached things, I suppose.
There's a lot of variables to play with over 260 odd miles, though. I mean, it's a very quick time what you've done, but it's a long period of time to be out in the hills, and even in July, you don't really know what the weather's going to do to you. I mean, in terms of the uncontrollable variables, how did the weather turn out for you over the course of the attempt?
Well, that sort of thing is exactly what I love about the sport, because it's not your kind of athletic talent, which, you know, is largely genetic anyway. That's not the determining factor in something like this. That's smaller and smaller. So yeah, okay, at 5,000 meters, 10,000 meters, half marathon, then ultimately, if everyone trains the same, it's most likely to be the people who have that genetic talent are going to win. But it's something like this. There's so many other factors, and that's what I love. So yeah, there's moving on the terrain, the different terrains. There's the weather. There's the fueling. There's the mindset, and so on. So I love all that. It makes it fascinating to me. The weather was, yeah, I suppose mixed. but I wanted it cool. It was usually overcast, some showers, a little bit of wind. Got a bit sunny on the final day, but generally, yeah, really good for what I was doing. I mean, the ground, I was actually more interested in the terrain and how it was going to be. Like, could it be dry at all? There is a rumor that Blenkinsop Common can actually dry out, and apparently on Mike's record-breaking summer in '89, it was.
Photos or it didn't happen. Hard to believe.
Exactly. So yes, it certainly wasn't dry when I went over it. Yeah, there was still definitely some boggy sections. But that's all part of the charm of the Pennines.
Yeah, absolutely, and you'd know a lot about that.
Yes.
So this was a carbon neutral run. What's in what way a carbon neutral run? How did you approach this differently to achieve that?
So I've consulted with a company called Our Carbon, quite a new company. I've been working with them for a little bit. I was just trying to understand initially, I guess, what my carbon and equivalent greenhouse gases footprint is, and could I improve it? But over chatting to them over time, we decided to do my whole family and all my work. So we got a figure for last year, and then we got like a target for this year, which would be a lot less. Off the top of my head, I can't remember what it is, but it is actually on their website, which is ourcarbon.com. They've got my plan on there. Cool. And there were some obvious lifestyle changes I can make. The obvious things: if you can fly less, if you cut out beef, switch to a renewable energy supplier, which is surprisingly easy. Things like that. And so they calculated, and then if you want to get, be neutral or even negative, there inevitably will be a little bit of an offset. So I've paid some money to Jim Mann's company, Future Forest Company, to plant me some trees. And of course, in the long term, offsetting isn't perfect, but it's one of the best things we've got for now. Yeah. So basically, I'm carbon negative for the year. Well, my family is. And then I consulted them again about this challenge, because what I felt bad about was, although I was fueling with that animal products and not using any products with plastic waste, and that was the really difficult bit. Actually, I'm picking up litter as we went. Obviously, I did encourage quite a few car journeys that wouldn't have happened otherwise. So I felt a little bit bad about that. But in my overall plan for the year, there was plenty of room for that, if you know what I mean. I mean, partly because of lockdown and none of us have travelled as much as we thought we would. So, but it fitted comfortably, easily in the plan. So I think he agreed it was still fair for me to say that challenge was carbon negative. So there you have it.
Yeah, fantastic. And do you find those little changes, and I'm just talking about your approach to a challenge or a race like this, have you found those little changes difficult? Is for a lot of runners, it's an obvious fallback to grab for an energy gel, say, when you're feeling a bit crappy out on the trail, but now you're looking at plastic or foil or both as a mixture for packaging. Have you found it a challenge to find those sort of products to fuel you on the way through?
So far, I've found it good fun. I suppose I've only done 2 challenges. I did this winter Paddy Buckley round in February. I had the same approach, and then this. It did take a fair bit of research beforehand. And sometimes I was buying stuff off the internet that claimed to be plastic free, and then it arrived and it wasn't really, and so on. So yeah, there's a bit of trial and error. But so far, it's fun. It's fun, and you end up making more things. Well, I say you end up persuading your wife to make more things. I'm a horrible stereotype when it comes to the kitchen. But I've got a good friend who's a sort of professional chef as well, and he made me a few things. The Border Hotel in Kirkyeto, maybe some food to go with. Wonderful curry. Yeah, they were great. And yeah, there are products around. There are companies using compostable wrappers, which I really applaud, and I think that's only gonna progress from here. So it was fun finding out, really.
Fantastic. And you're blazing a trail there where other people can follow behind you on it, and I can't imagine it's any more difficult to find these sort of things than it is when you're training for events like this and you're trying out different products to see how they work for your stomach. You're trying out different products to see how they fit into the clothing you're wearing along the way. It's an extension of that research process that runners are going through anyway, right?
I think so, yeah, and I will at some point soon maybe do a blog on the different foods I found and used as well, because it was it was good fun. And I mean, when it came down to it, you're nearly always surprised by what foods you'll want. And this does sound horribly posh, but it wasn't me that made the sandwich. Someone else had a sandwich. I was struggling a bit for food, and someone had a hummus and avocado sandwich, and they offered it to me. It was in the dark somewhere. I still haven't found out who it was. I want to thank them. But it just disappeared down my gullet. And I was like, when I saw my crew next, I was like, I need hummus and avocado sandwiches, and I need them now. And they're like, okay. And they, of course, they had to go shopping and so on for me. But yeah, the next day, I think I ate mostly that, and tea and some slices of mango from Nikki Ligo, who I should credit for all her amazing help.
We did a bit of a shout out for Nikki in the John Kelly episode as well. She seems to have turned herself into the go-to person for an FKT on the Pennine Way.
Mrs. Pennine Way, I've started calling her. Yeah, she's incredible.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. And what about the rubbish you collected along the way? Was there a lot of it? I mean, most runners on a challenge like this would be insanely preoccupied with the idea of not carrying any more weight than necessary. But you made it a priority.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't really have a good idea of how much they would be. I suppose I hoped there wouldn't be much because it would weigh me down. But my pacers were incredibly generous. I never asked them to pick anything up. When I briefed them beforehand, I never said you have to pick up the rubbish or anything. But they're nearly always, if I went to stoop down, they would, almost barge me out of the way and grab it. So I was very touched by that. And it was mostly, the occasional plastic bottle, but mostly wrappers. And thankfully there wasn't, a sofa or a burnt out car or something that would have got a bit
really
tricky.
Could have messed up your plans. Yeah.
Yes. So I think we ended up with 6 to 8 sort of medium sized biodegradable sacks full of rubbish. I regret not actually weighing that, or at least getting a nice figure for people of that. I guess several kilograms of rubbish, I suppose. So a decent amount, maybe reassuring in a way, not ludicrous amount. I mean, there's a suspicion that maybe if John was trying to slow me down, he knew I was going next week. I mean, was he scattering rubbish behind him? I don't want to cast aspersions on John here, but
hard to prove otherwise now, isn't it? So we'll just have to take his word for it. So John was a little bit cagey when I spoke to him about what exactly the hot beverage based bet was that was going on behind the scenes. So for those who aren't in the know, what was the bet between you and John?
I'm a bit confused about what it was, actually. But no, I think it was almost 2 bets, but the overarching bet was whoever ran the slowest time had to drink the tea of, a tea in the style of the faster times preference. So in Edale, he has posted a video of this. Matt and Ellie from Summit Fever Media filmed him doing it. He did drink his first cup of English breakfast tea.
His first ever?
Apparently so. Yeah.
It's inhuman.
Yeah. And I think I really like John. He's been here a year. I think he's made a real efforts to get to know the country and our culture. But there's one sort of culturally ignorant thing that he does, which I don't really think is forgivable, and that is his attitude towards tea. And also, I mean, I drank a lot of tea on my attempt. If he's to try again, I think he could do better if he drank more tea, quite frankly.
Well, I mean, we've only got to look at the maths here. He didn't drink tea. You did. 3 hours off the record. I think it speaks for itself as a performance-enhancing drink. That is exactly the kind of science I'm seeing a lot of on social media at the moment. Oh, fantastic. Did you see any sign at all that he enjoyed the tea when he drank it?
Yes, he kind of gave the impression that it wasn't as bad as he had feared it might be. And on camera, he kind of said it was, yes, okay-ish, I think. it's quite high on his Twitter feed. You could probably still find it. But then when the camera was turned off, he made different comments, which I think a little bit. I'm not sure what people think of that. But I also had to try if I'm honest though, I had to try. I think part of another bet we had or something, I had to try the iced tea, which he had been looking after for 4 months, that he had brought over from America for me to try. And I was relatively civil about it, but on reflection, it's properly disgusting. So I was probably filmed saying something civilish about it, but I felt caught up in the sense of occasion of politeness, which is quite British.
Very British.
But now I would like to confirm I thought it was disgusting.
Fair enough. You heard it here first, folks. I realise I'm going to have to let you go in a minute, Damian, which is a tremendous shame. I know I'm low on your list today. You were on the Beeb this morning, were you not?
I was. Yeah, it was strange and entertaining. Yes.
Well, between the Jasmine Paris course record that went around the world, not last year, the year before on the Spine, and we guys of your ilk are now starting to pop up in the mainstream media here and there. Are we seeing a move towards a more, I don't know, more of the public paying attention to what goes on in the ultra running world?
Maybe, probably. It feels like that, doesn't it?
Yeah, it certainly does.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, if it gets more people out and about and in their daps, then it's a good thing. I think, as long as they don't drop any litter.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, as notes to end on go, I think we could have done worse than that. Look, thanks very much for taking time out between appointments today to have a chat to me. I appreciate that.
Absolute pleasure, Will, as always. Thank you very much. And hope to catch up soon.
Yeah, absolutely. It'll be nice to have an actual chat sometime soon. But massive congratulations again. Well done, man. I hope the record stands for a good long while.
Thanks, dude. Take care.